Víctor Muñoz Sanz is an assistant professor of urban design at TU-Delft, where he conceptualizes, leads, and develops critical research on the architecture and urbanism of the past, present, and future of work. His research looks at the interplay of the design of productive landscapes with technology and management, and aims to question the role of urban design in enabling new urban economies and inclusive forms of work. He is the author of the book Una Rápida Compañera and co-editor of Habitat, Ecology Thinking in Architecture, Roadside Picnics, Encounters with the Uncanny, and Automated Landscapes. Victor qualified as an architect at the School of Architecture of Madrid and holds a Master's of Architecture and Urban Design with distinction from Harvard University Graduate School of Design and a PhD cum laude in Architecture from Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. So I would like to welcome Victor to the stage for the first part.
Well, as pointed by Abby and Jolaine, at some point it was not the painter's role solely aimed to provide a faithful rendering of what he saw. Some of these animals can look familiar to one to each other, no? And that practice of what is called staffage, so the reuse of images, people, cows in paintings, is seen in these typical postures across cattle painting. For example, the cow laying down or the cow drinking head mirrored in the water. While drawing was indeed easy to do outside and with the living animals, the cattle piece was painted in studios, as well they said before, emphasizing a form of pseudo-realism. And, for example, terracotta models were used as models for painting, as this example of Van de Velde. While this drawing by this painting, the drawing lesson by Jan Steen, contains a model of a cow, reportedly also by Van de Velde, which talks about how these plaster or bronze models may have served artists as models, facilitating the realization of pseudo-reality of a cow in a beautiful landscape. Also, the geometry of the cow was codified in schemes and diagrams, providing painters proportional systems to represent this idealized reality. Fast forward to the first quarter of the 20th century, and I present you to this artwork, which is perhaps less well known, but that arguably has had a huge influence in shaping contemporary dairy landscapes. This sculpture is called the true type cow. And this is the counterpart of this painting by Edwin McGargy, which was painted in the 20s, and which hangs in the stairwells of the Holstein Association of the USA. This model represents the nearest approach to the perfect Holstein cow that expert breeders should strive to breed. It shows the general idea and points towards one should breed one's herds. It visualizes the conformations and proportions of the ideal Holstein. And it's what the board of directors of the Holstein Friesian Association consider the near-perfect conformation of a Holstein cow. This ideal defines the qualities of about 90 physical traits that all breeders should aspire to achieve in their work. And this is what forms then the scorecards in competitions around the world. These animals, they create a good example to follow, and the completely untrue type cow, as the one we see on the right, which is a model showing the defects in conformation. For breeders, is a cow that would not last long. It would not have longevity, it would not have a healthy life. This true type cow, true type model became the internationally recognized yardstick of structural correctness. It's a linear type classification system for which animals were measured, inspected, and judged, and became the kind of best established method for assessing the relation between physical conformation and economically important traits. One could think that today, with all these developments in technoscience, in breeding and genomics, such an approach, which is based on a painting and a model, a sculpture, would have lost its relevance. But according to data associations, data shows that cows with more correct functional conformation live longer and make more milk. Cows with better physical conformation provide more lifetime revenue to a dairy farm. The economic traits, the data about production, milk, fat, protein, somatic cells, etc., must go together with that physical conformation. In the end, if an animal doesn't have the quality to produce milk, you will see by how it looks like. A breeder I interviewed described body conformation of a cow like a building. So a good cow, good conformation of one animal is like when you build a house or a bridge. The most important thing is to have a good structure. Any animal which is built on a very balanced way is going to provide us an animal with less problems, and it helps to make their life a bit longer. So the true type painting remains relevant. And this is the latest version of it by painter Bonnie Moore, which is a renowned agricultural artist in Minnesota, which painted this true type model cow, which her name is Juliet, with extreme detail. And she had to work, of course, with the demands of the true type model panel of the American Holstein Association, which is a commission whose members and deliberations are kept confidential. She worked with pictures of bulls, of cows, to create these new models. And of course, based on the animals which have key points of exceptional correctness. So this mix of art and science, they developed this model, which is the one that all the dairy industry should aspire to. Last year, I was in the Holland Holstein show in Leeuwarden, and I was witness of that kind of celebration of culture around the measurement and the judgment of cows, and how farmers are proud showing their herds and how they care for their animals. And it's obvious how first impression matters. So before participating in the show, all animals get time and attention to get their kind of show ring ready through, trimming and blow drying and all sort of things to emphasize some of the physical qualities that are closer to the ideal. And according to the judges, you can emphasize the quality of a cow about 10 to 15% by this means, with the clipping and the fitting. But in the end, the physical component, the structure of the cow, is the most important, something called the dairy strength, which is the capacity for the cow to produce milk. So the animal is strong enough to produce milk with flat bones, clean neck. It has to be feminine, a long neck, something that connects very much with the description of the painter's book that you talked about, that a cow has to express as well the femininity. Of course, they need to have a strong chest and lots of space between the legs to have the others. Of course, at the backdrop of the show is the whole industry of genomics, the marketplaces of reproductive cells, and the competitions to improve the race for purity and transcendence, which is imposed on the species. If we compare the evolution from the first Dutch cow that was exported to the USA, this cow belongs to the Dutch Frisian cattle breed, the black and white cattle breed, which is the origin of the North American Holstein Frisian breed that actually has replaced the Dutch population of cows, and it became the global cow, basically. And we see how the old cow has qualities of being strong and feminine, but has some problems. For example, the udder is too deep, so it can create problems with walking and moving. It's a bit fatter as well. But the contemporary cow is smaller, smoother, it's more flat, and the shape of the udder is attached and has a bigger volume. Also, you can see the texture of the udder is bigger, so that you can see more veins, more blood circulation, which means you have more milk produced. There has been three model of the true type ideal cow, developed since 1923. And that ideal cow is in evolution. It is updated by the Commission X amount of years in relation to the dairy industry's needs and trends. So where is this true type heading to the future? This future is being apparently shaped by both climate concerns and automation. On the one hand, climate, there's a tendency for smaller cows, which there's more feed efficiency. So the cows use less energy and less feed for herself, and it's more about producing milk with less energy. And also, smaller and healthy cows are better suited for resisting heat stress in the context of global warming. Automation is the second key factor. Since the invention of the milking robot in 1982 and the commercial development by company Lely, which you saw before somewhere in the presentation. Automated solutions for dairy farming have become more common. This mainstreaming of automation, caused mostly for labor shortages, mean that artificial insemination, mating, and marketing programs have since then coined the term robot ready for sires whose daughters are more suited to robotic milking. This comprises several characteristics, physiological, for example, about milk speed, so how fast the robot extracts milk from the cow, and how often the cow goes to get milked. They also are behavioral. It's about temperament and the habituation to the machine. So a very nervous animal will not work very well with a milking robot. Physical, for example, in the shape and position of the udder and the teats. So it's very important that let's say the foreudder and the rear udder are in the same level, because then the laser of the robots can actually read the body of the cow and milk more efficiently. Also, it's about the stature, so how big the cow is. When you make such a box, when you make a robot that implies that the cow has to get into a box, and it's a standard, a cow which is too big, too large, can have problems. They can get more nervous as well. And locomotion. The cow, with automation, the cow is the one who goes to be milked in the milking robot. So it has to be able to walk back and forth from the barn to the robot. So that means that she needs good feet and legs and has to be strong enough to walk on concrete, metal, or rubber. This drawing that we did for the project explains, in a way, all these ideal conformation details in the context of automation as well. What is very important, which connects also with Sophia's presentation and the handbooks, is that Lely's technology and other producers of technology include not just only the robots that are being produced, but also includes information and manuals about the spatial organization and design of the farm so that it's fit for automated milking. I quote what they say here: the barn is a system. Management decisions, constraints, and barn components should be seen as a whole. So this handbook discusses farm layout and co-housing. It addresses the basic spatial requirements for the robotic systems to perform efficiently, as well as those which are needed to maintain the welfare and productivity of the cows. So together with suggestions on where to place the milking robots, the passageways, or the automated fences, Lely advises farmers on issues such as dimensions and materials for the lying of the animals, these mattresses that were mentioned before, the bedding, the flooring, the barn ventilation, and the lighting. Besides the milking robot, the space is inhabited by self-guided barn cleaners, an automated kitchen and feeding systems, feed pushers, automated brushes, robotic fencers, and all sort of cow traffic control tools. So they form this machine ecosystem which replaces human labor in dairy farms. At the center is the collar, which you see there, which has sensors that measure activity, eating time, and rumination. In some cases also it geolocates the animals, and is the one that passes the information to the robots so the algorithms can take appropriate action. For example, the automated fences can direct animals which the systems say are ill or are about to be pregnant, to move them to special zones for special treatment to prevent the disruption of the traffic to the milking robot. So one of the big promises of automation is that robotization limits stressful human-animal interactions, so making the barn an emancipatory space for cows. At the same time, to the side of the picture, farmers are managing bigger dairy farms from behind their desks, in control rooms overlooking the farm. Data goes to a dashboard software in which the farmer can observe the performance of the herd and of each individual cow. So technology allows farmers to have more precise control on larger herds, increasing scale of production with a smaller manpower. Those who put forward these technologies, or embrace them in the business, name animal welfare as one of the main gains of automated systems. In that narrative, cows' desire to express their natural behavior and achieving freedom can be fulfilled. And here they use one of the paradigms that was emerging out of that discussion on animal rights in the 70s, which is the so-called 5 freedoms, which is about how the environment in which farming happens, how to provide freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from physical and thermal discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, and disease, freedom from fear and chronic stress, and freedom to express the natural behavior. Of course, one could question what behaving naturally means when the animals are the result of this reproductive selection and breeding, which based on traits that also define their behavior. So automated systems give freedom to the cows to be milked whenever they want, and they are free to go out and graze outdoors and return to the barn when needed. As the farmer gains freedom for taking care of the cow is happier and healthier. That's how the story goes. A similar approach, let's say, is the one that guides also like, the most famous welfare stamp that we get in Netherlands, the Beter Leven stamp, which basically is the guide, non-official because not governmental, it's like a advice for farmers, producers, to express, how many stars do you have in terms of animal welfare in your farm. And they don't base themselves in the animal freedoms, they base loosely in another paradigm for welfare, the 5 domains, which are about nutrition, environment, health, behavior, and mental state. This drawing that we made with Divya, who's here, it talks about what are let's say, the elements that are being assessed in that, to get that stamp, let's say, when do you have a 3-star landscape? The interesting thing is that there's a lot of emphasis on grazing on the landscape. For example, to get 3 stars, you have to have at least the cows 8 hours a day, 180 days a year grazing outdoors. Again, versus 120 days a year with 6 hours a day for 1 star. Again, also it's about the density of the cows. 3 stars means that you can have a maximum of 6.5, I don't know how the 0.5 works, cows per hectare of available grassland versus 10 in the 1 star. They talk about having also a herb-rich landscape, nature management with native species, and land-based farms in which manure is not disposed elsewhere. Also, it's about the proximity of the feed. The feed, basically the fresh feed, or the straw, the maize, and the grass has to come from within 100 kilometers from the farm. That's kind of the conditions to achieve the 3 stars. The painting of the true-type cow, at first is painted without a background. It's just the anatomics of the cow. But eventually there has to be a decision of which kind of the landscape that goes behind the cow. So the committee of the hosting cow association, they kind of decided that they should have a typical USA setting that resembles somewhere a sense of pasture, and that it will be a natural setting for the animals. In some way, what all these notion of welfare and the affordance of technology is reproducing a true type landscape as well, which is an idealized idea of nature, which is kind of prototypically Dutch, one could say, the grass fields of the polder. The problem is when too many cows are outside, of course, and this fantasy of achieving this kind of natural welfare systems clash with the reality of ecological balance. Of course, when you have more cows outside, it means there's more manure, more breathing, more farts, more burps. That means that there's more emissions of methane, ammonia, and phosphates, which have increased by a lot since 2016. We added the nitrogen cycle to this figure to show indeed how perhaps this reproduction of the ideal of a landscape is contributing to the phenomenon of the nitrogen crisis that we have today. Also how, without looking at the interrelationship between different elements in the environment, having cows outside has consequences in terms of carbon storage. So there's a tipping point in which indeed grazing contributes to carbon storage, but if you have too many cows outside, then you enter in problem with soil erosion and with damage to plant inputs. So that tells us about a limited understanding of the environment in these dominant ideas of welfare. And they need to expand them so that they acknowledge the welfare is, in the end, to achieve welfare, one needs to think how this is interdependent with other species. In the meantime, human ingenuity has managed to develop fixes for the problem of emissions. For example, by additives in feed that reduce the amount of methane that cows emit, or transforming the barns, the architecture of the barns, with floor systems, manure separation, and circular systems that transform emissions in fertilizers. Of course, especially in this case, that means that the cows cannot go outside so often because then otherwise there's no point of having this system. So the solution is another robot, which is this vehicle that would bring the fresh grass to the cows. So that talks about, again, maybe in the future, our green grasslands will be having these creatures instead of cows on them. Still, one of the main problems is that barns need to be naturally ventilated, also following welfare standards. So not all emissions can be captured by technology. So the latest development, which actually is funded by the Dutch government and will be built in the north of the country, is this new prototype of a barn, which is called EVA, which means Emissie-vrij autarkisch stal. So emission-free autarkic stall, which is basically a transposition of, let's say, like the transposition of the controlled environmental agriculture to dairy farming. It's how do you make an enclosure that, let's say, all climate is controlled, and therefore you can also absorb the emissions, and the cows are inside most, if not all, of their life. The problem with this, of course, they know about it, is that to what extent society will accept that the cows are not anymore outside. Interesting as well is how this visualization is used it was done by this person working in this institution, giving prompts to AI systems to develop this architecture. So architects, again, are not really part of the conversation until now, maybe. So can we accept this cow without a landscape, or the landscape without the cow? Should we place the landscape in a bottle? And it's being proposed. Of course, there's out of space for architectural imaginations, which can be used to reimagine the landscapes. These kind of interior landscapes, synthetic landscapes, vertical playgrounds. However, even in the most fantastical architectural imaginations, and across millennia of cohabitation between animals and humans, our relationship with animals is always asymmetric, involving exploitation and cruelty. Even in the big city, pigs are being killed. But also is co-constitutive of a complex affair of significant otherness, as Donna Haraway would say, with interdependencies, entanglements, rituals, and more or less transfers of genes and microbial communities. There's a culture that we cannot ignore as well. Is a world without cattle possible or desirable? We as society might decide eventually to let go of the cow. Yet given our story as companions, we need to find a proper way to say goodbye, perhaps, instead of simply accepting expendability of hundreds of thousands of farm animals. A start could be, as we did with this project, is this little contribution to rethinking the cattle piece, to document and preserve cultural and design practices, which are problematic but have to be told, so that some of these stories don't end and are actually part of our history and knowledge. Because in the end, the cow might tell us more about us as a species than a society than ourselves. Thank you.